Good evening. Welcome to the August 2nd Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'd like to call it to order at 6:04. And before we open up with public comment, I'm going to let everyone know that I will not be taking any comment on the Headlands project until the second public comment section in our meeting. We've received, Ed, can you mute Ed, please? We've received number of emails, number of phone calls. So right now we're going to be going off of that when we have a discussion, and you're more than welcome to comment on it on the second part of our meeting. So with that, we'll open up public comment. Go ahead, Monty. We have Ed.
I need to unmute somehow.
Yep, you're unmuted, Ed.
I can't hear a thing.
Ed, you've been unmuted.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Ed?
Well,
All right, just you can mute him again. We'll go to Laura.
Let's unmute.
Laura, you've been unmuted.
Hi, this is Laura Evans at 77 High Street. Thank you for taking the public comment. I just wanted to ask about the status of the Conservation Commission appointments. I know that there's been a number of vacancies for some months now, and I just wondered if the selectmen could tell us what's going on there.
Again, we're still working through it. We're still trying to get other matters handled. You saw the newspaper article in the newspaper, of course, and unfortunately the article set us back a few steps because we had some people back out. So other than that, we're still working on it, and we'll have a further update at a future date. I mean, we're trying to get them all set, but we don't have an agent and we don't have one lined up, so we have to put the application back out to see who can apply.
Would you be able to share, select person Donnelly said she had a spreadsheet showing items that were before the board, so we can kind of see what the people who are volunteering, see what we're signing up for. I wonder if you could share that, Ms. Donnelly.
Laura, why don't I speak with you afterwards?
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can try Ed again. See if he can hear us.
Ed,
Hey, Ed, can you hear us? All right, we move to Sherry.
Sherry, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Sherry Casey. I'm at 10 Dean Road, and I'm also here as the Vice President of the Rockport Garden Club. I just wanted to let the selectmen know that this morning we hand delivered a letter to all of the selectmen, and we also emailed the same letter and some additional materials to the selectmen's email account that's listed on the town webpage. We know it'll take you a while to digest what we have said, but we just want to make sure that you have all received it. I don't know if any of you have yet at this point.
Yes.
Once you read it, if you have questions, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Sherry.
Has anybody received it?
We've all received it, and as you know, we've also reached out to Pam to set up a meeting between myself and Vice Chairwoman Wilkinson. So we'll be meeting with her and whoever else she chooses.
I'm not talking about the letter that was received a few days ago. This is a formal letter from the club itself. The other was from an individual.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Jerry.
Hi.
Jerry, you've been unmuted.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Jerry Sharfstein, 2A Twin Light Circle, Rockport. I was hoping that Ed Hand could speak prior to me speaking, but unfortunately, it appears he's having some technical difficulties. Earlier, I am a member of the two committees, the Rockport Climate Action Group, as well as the Green Community Task Force. Earlier today, I sent a message to all the members of the board. Probably you haven't had an opportunity to read it, but I'd like to read it to everyone. A group of citizens from Rockport Climate Action, some of which are also Green Community Task Force members, would like the board to consider making the following changes to the policy of the Board of Selectmen relating to appointing members of boards, committees, and commissions. We ask that you please put this on the agenda at the next Board of Selectmen meeting and vote on it at that time. And here's what we are proposing. The selectmen shall not appoint a resident to more than 3 board committee commissions at one time. The selectmen reserve the right to make exceptions in their discretion on an as-needed basis in the best interest of the town. This policy does not apply to offices elected by the voters or to appointments by town moderator. We'd like you to consider that. As you're aware, we have a situation with the Green Community Task Force with regard to Tom Mikas. And as you're aware, we were just awarded a $200,000 grant. And it's critical that we need Tom's leadership to guarantee that these contracts be successfully fulfilled. And we're asking that the board take a look at this decision that they made as far as their that issue and consider the changes that we made. So I would hope that you would take this into consideration and put it on the agenda at the next meeting.
Thank you, Jerry. I will take it under consideration, but as I've said to a few other members, that the board has voted once already, and he's more than welcome to resign from another committee and go right towards Green Community Task Force if you'd like. It's his choice right now. We'll move on to Nathaniel.
Daniel, you've been
Thank you,
unmuted.
Chairman Brackett. Yep, thank you. Just very briefly, in terms of 3 quick points. The Conservation Commission appointments, I know you've spoken to this already, Chairman Brackett, but I have done the interviews. I have met with council. I have the qualifications. I don't understand why the newspaper article will set us back, because the newspaper article has nothing to do with the people who are applying for the vacancies. And if the people who have already made it through all the obligations for the appointment can be appointed, we would have a Conservation Commission now, even with the issues that the newspaper article came up. The newspaper article seems to be an excuse for further delaying something which needed to be in place for the past 4 months. And that is a detriment to our community. Right now, one of the reasons that Tom is being asked to step down from committees, and you just mentioned that, is because the premise was we were trying to encourage more people to volunteer. But I have fulfilled all the obligations for volunteering and am still not able to volunteer. So I think there is a greater impediment to encouraging people to volunteer being generated by the Board of Selectmen's refusal to appoint people who have already made all the requirements to be appointed, rather than Tom's presence on 4 committees. I think that if we're really serious about encouraging more people to volunteer, we should look at what is impeding people from volunteering at its root cause. And I don't think it's Tom being on 4 committees. I think it's the fact that it's taken more than 4 months for somebody who's qualified to even be appointed and not even be appointed. I sat for the meeting last time for 2.5 hours and it never even got brought up. So that's point 1. Point 2, Chairman Brackett asked for letters. He said he would reconsider the vote on Tom if enough people wrote. I know that many people wrote, but what was the number of people who wrote, and what was the number of people that needed to write that Chairman Brackett said that if enough people wrote, he would reconsider it? What was that magical number, and how many people did write? That's a direct question, Chairman Brackett, if you could answer that.
I can't,
And then
not
the
off the top
final,
of my head, no idea. And my
how
number
many
is
people did you want to write?
around 40, 50.
40 or 50? And that is an arbitrarily invented rule, or is that in the town regulations?
That's for me, because it's not our only topic. Like him, he can choose to leave a committee and be moved on to Green Community Task Force. He can. So stop trying to blame the elected officials, okay? We have a policy.
The
We're following
elected
the policy
officials
as
have
a
changed the rules, though.
Since when? That's been implemented July 1st.
And
Okay.
he was already on those committees before July 1st, so it should be
And
grandfathered in.
his
that
term
he's
was
in
up
there.
on the ad hoc. So next point, please.
And the final point, where are the attendance records for the select people?
What do you mean attendance records?
So there are, Board of Selectmen meets regularly.
Yeah.
It would be helpful to know how many select members attend what percentage of the meetings. Where
For the
is
Board of
that
Selectmen
available?
meetings?
Yep.
Oh, you can just go look at the minutes. It states who's present for the selectmen
And those minutes are all
on the
available.
website.
Okay, thank you
Yep.
very much. Those are my 3 points.
Thank you. Toby?
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. At your last meeting, I spoke about the possibility that the Government and Bylaw Committee could hold hearings to listen to people who would like to do petition articles. And that would be of assistance to such people who regularly fall on their noses. As it turns out, you're opening the warrant and closing it at the same meeting tonight. That's what I see on the agenda. So obviously that isn't going to take place. I wonder, did you reach out to the Government and Bylaw Committee and ask them if their offer was still good? Not that it would help people now when the warrant is closed. I'm concerned, I heard today that the Government and Bylaw Committee was going to cut back severely on the number of articles they hope to bring to the fall town meeting, cut back radically, and that was because the town clerk found it was more than she or her assistant could cope with. I have great faith in Melanie Waddell and feel that she could cope with whatever came forward. What should limit the number of articles brought to a town meeting would be, the voters' ability to review them properly and comprehend them. And as an example of that not working, a dehortative example, if you will, I would point to the special town meeting on the zoning, where we didn't get any proper explanation of the bulk of Article B, which dealt with roughly the whole zoning code, 100+ pages. And I would hope that if you have, since you have control of the warrant, that you would bear that in mind when it comes to a special town meeting that the planning board has asked to do the same foolish thing all over again and overload a warrant with more than the voters could possibly, with all goodwill and diligence, hope to comprehend. I'd like a response to that, not now, but at some point at the next meeting.
So,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, if I just, that's, I'm glad that it was started out prefaced with calling it a rumor, because that's what it is. The Government and Bylaw Committee is likely to send forth approximately a dozen articles, and those are selected based on their understanding that there's only so much you can process in a meeting. And there's CPC articles, there are other matters to come before the meeting. They have made their determinations in their public meetings on how many articles they want to send forward. I'm expecting from conversations with the chair that it'll be about a dozen. Nothing to do with the clerk's office and having too many. The clerk's office is very competent and would handle whatever came through. It's based on Government and Bylaw Committee being realistic about what's reasonable for the town to process in one meeting.
Thank you. Selectwoman Wilkinson?
Just to add also, Toby, tonight's agenda is to set the open and close dates for the warrant. So we're obviously not, I believe the motion is to open it tonight, but it's to set the close date. We obviously wouldn't open and close it the same day.
Thank you. Christine?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Christine Downing. I'm at 19 Parker Street. I respectfully request that the Board of Selectmen find a way to approve Tom Meekas's appointments to 4 committees. Rockport Climate Action fully supports these appointments. Each of these committees is already 1 member short, and without Tom Meekas would be 2 members short. That's the Right of Way Committee, which the appointment is made by the Board of Selectmen. the Green Community Task Force, also appointed by the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, which is elected, the Ad Hoc Water Committee, which the town moderator appointed Tom Mikas on July 1st. The Ad Hoc Water Committee started requesting Tom Mikas's appointment in April, but due to town administrative overloads and staff resignations, he'd still not been appointed by the end of June. The town moderator appointed him on July 1st at the beginning of the 2023 fiscal year. On July 5th, the Board of Selectmen considered exemptions for Monica Lawton and Tom Mikas, each one of them on 4 committees. If their exemptions had been voted together, their treatment would have been equal, either exempt or not. Instead, they've been treated unequally, which is contrary to one of the purposes of law. Also denying Tom Mikas an exemption when he'd already been appointed to a 4th committee is retroactive legislation. The board did that on the 5th of July and he was appointed on the 1st. Rather than altering what was already in place, a standard practice would be to grandfather both Lawton and Mikas in for the next cycle and then limit them to 3 committees after that. The reason given for limiting volunteers to 3 committee appointments was to give more people a chance to participate in town government. But it's difficult to find qualified and skilled volunteers who are willing to carry this heavy workload without compensation. And as noted above, all of the 4 committees have 1 empty appointment seat, and removing Tom Mikas from any committee would make it 2 members short, each one of them. Absences, lack of work, and conflicts of interest are reasons for removal from committees. Tom Mikas's track record is exemplary for excellence, insight, integrated analysis of issues, recommendations that are made by the Green Community Task Force and others, planning, fundraising, and project realization. In addition to being a cash cow or golden goose for the town, having brought in about $1 million in grants, including the most recent one, and with more funding and resources on the way, it certainly raises the question of why we would want to limit this. Compartmentalized or siloed information is a consistent issue with town business. It's challenging to unify the subtle discussions and decisions made by approximately 40 committees and commissions. The town moderator's appointment of Tom Mikas on the 4th committee on July 1st is an example in following the Board of Selectmen's decision to limit volunteers to 3 appointments, which happened some weeks before that, I believe. Tom Mikas and Monica Lawton are both energetic, analytic, highly skilled contributors, and both are carrying the full weight of these appointments. They are both retired and able to contribute full-time work if they're permitted to do so. Tom Mikas is a highly skilled scientist from MIT, and he's working for the common good, bringing healthy, clean resources to Rockport. This is what could be happening if he was appointed and back on the Green Community Task Force, for example. They just were awarded a $200,000 grant for green community projects already approved by the Board of Selectmen. They need to get going on this or they will default on the grant, and then that will disqualify them from applying for future grants. The American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funds need finalized quotes for the ventilation project for Town Hall, Central Fire Building, the library, and this is they need the quotes before so they can engage the contractor before he's too busy with other projects.
Okay, thank you, Christine, that's enough.
I have a little bit more, just a little bit more.
Okay.
Thank you. Final phases of the street lights and replacement with LEDs is up, and it should have kicked off on July 1st with FY23 funding. The risk of losing the contractor and the National Grid cooperation if they can't move on that, and the solar study needs to be presented to the Board of Selectmen for possible action. If this doesn't happen, then the state incentives decrease with time. However, the Board of Selectmen wish to proceed to treat these exemptions for Monica Lawton and Tom Mikas equally, in or out, a policy revision or something else, Rockport will benefit immensely from expediting his appointments. So I submit this respectfully. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just a comment on the projects, in the email that when we were awarded it, we can't move on those projects until we actually receive the money. And as far as I know, we haven't actually got it yet, so we're still not in the time limit that it's gonna go against us. And again, as far as I'm concerned, we still have a Green Community Task Force that should be able to fully function without them. If not, please let me know, and I can seek alternatives if needed. Z?
Yes, Z Sepul, 92 Granite Street. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Ross, I want to talk about 2 or 3 years ago, perhaps less, under Don Campbell's chairmanship, the Board of Selectmen went through a process of revising their own Board of Selectmen policies. And one of the policies that might have been subject to revision was policy 1005, which purpose was to attract and recruit qualified individuals, ensure a public process to provide diversity and balance on its boards, committees, and commissions. And the policy, under 5 items of it, the number one that concerns me is that openings shall be posted at Town Hall, on the town website, and be announced at Board of Selectmen's meetings and advertised if feasible. I'm wondering if that policy, which was originally initiated on September 1st, 1983, served the town for 31 years before being possibly amended by the board 2 or 3 years ago, is still in effect, because it still is on the town website under the Board of Selectmen, under their policies. And I found the recent appointment of the DPW commissioner to be very, very far departure from that policy. I don't know whether or not anybody else applied or would have known to apply. And I want to know, perhaps, if by the end of this evening at the second public comment, somebody can look and see if that policy has been revised, if a new written policy is on the town website, and whether or not that covers what seems to my mind to be quite a diversion from the goal of the previous policy. So it's a question for the board that I know that they updated or upgraded, well, let's say updated some of their own policies 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm wondering if this one was a candidate and what changed, because the old policy effective May 2014 is still on the town website.
All right, thank you, Z. I'll look in that for the last public comment section. Ed?
No,
Go ahead, Ed. You've been unmuted.
okay. I'm Ed Hand from 20 Landmark Lane. And I've been a member of the Green Community Task Force since its inception. Initially as the planning board representative when we wrote the initial grant application to the Commonwealth. Some of what I'm saying is going to be repetitive from what was said before. I was supposed to lead off this thing with respect to Tom Meekus, but we had a technical problem here. The Green Communities Program has always been a challenge for small towns like Rockport with limited resources, as there's always a time crunch to complete the grant applications once we receive the year's grant opportunities. Then there's followed by a long wait to find out whether we are awarded a grant. Then there's a time crunch to complete the project, usually over the summer and early fall, to be in a position to apply for subsequent year's grants. And that's critical. You have to close out one to get the other. As a result of the situation with Tom Meekis's non-renewal, the Green Community Task Force has fallen behind on completing some $200,000 in project grants we've been awarded this year. Getting started on them. As a result, the town is at risk of losing these grants and next year's grants as well. To have someone like Tom, who has consistently played a critical role and has enormous energy, expertise, and knowledge, suddenly removed as we enter a crucial time in our project schedule is, to say the least, most unfortunate. He knows the project is highly organized and strong leadership skills. A new person simply cannot get up to speed in time, and the remaining members cannot complete the exhaustive list of tasks by ourselves. We, as members of the Gene Green Committee Task Force, feel that having Tom continue as a member, and particularly as chair of the Rockport Green Community Task Force, is enormously important to the town of Rockport. And we implore you to grant him exemption, or in some way allowing him to serve until we complete this year's projects. And hopefully this policy is revised. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Selectwoman Wilkinson?
Yeah, Ross, would you mind if I just made a comment about the policy first?
Go ahead.
Because I know that I missed the last meeting due to a personal issue, so I wasn't here, but I think we've gotten so many letters and emails about this. I just think it's important that obviously I've been on the board for a long time, and we make policies so that we don't have to deal with individual issues, you know, and the policies are really what the board feels is the best for the town as a whole, not just individuals, you know, individual committee members or other volunteers. And so when we made that policy, people keep saying it's so more people can volunteer. That's actually not why we made the policy. In my opinion, we made the policy so that we didn't have a monopoly of a small group of volunteers on multiple committees, so that people didn't feel intimidated to join one committee or maybe two committees. If someone, you know, people reach out to me all the time, oh, I've never volunteered for the town before. You know, I'm willing to, like, you know, I work, I have kids, I could give maybe one evening a month. And I'm like, okay, try your, you know, give this committee a shot, give, you know, this committee. You know, Denise and I recently had someone who wanted to volunteer, and we put our heads together to figure out where would they be best with the time they could give. And unfortunately, what we've realized over the years is when you have a small number of people that are on 4 and 5 committees, it becomes like a monopoly, and it's just it's overwhelming for new volunteers to kind of want to like wade their feet in the water. So we made the policy. It had nothing to do with anyone individually. And then just to clarify, the policy is the policy. The committees that he's on is totally in Tom's hands. I frankly find it ridiculous that he isn't on green communities and hasn't stepped off of ad hoc water or something else until the bulk of the work he wants to do on green communities is over. That's just how it works. But it's not us. We're not holding him back from being on green communities. I mean, to be honest, this has raised a major red flag for me that we had one person doing so much of one committee's work. And I think we need to look at that, because no committees should be reliant on just one person. It would be like the Board of Selectmen. So I think we need to look into that. But I just wanted to clarify, because I know I wasn't here. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, Eric Hutchins, 45 Pools Lane. I actually didn't come intending to speak this evening, but after seeing the comments that continuously, and certainly something I've followed for many years now, is the Conservation Commission. I was on the commission prior to there being an agent. I actually helped lead the charge back in the 90s with a few other members to actually hire a part-time staff person. I work with conservation commissions all throughout coastal Massachusetts, just about every single commission I have worked with. It is extremely rare to have a commission just not in place for multiple months on end. We've got viable people asking to be on these committees and commissions, in particular the Conservation Commission. I believe the town deserves a reason why you're not moving forward. Many towns don't have agents. So it's not like you don't need, if Mitch quit tomorrow, we wouldn't tell the Board of Selectmen to go home until we got a new town manager. You step up. We've got qualified people. At least the two that are stepping up, I know their qualifications. They, at least in the arena of conservation, they've got qualifications. They're not just saying, hey, I want to learn this. or point them and let them start learning. We're losing valuable time. 6 months is we're leaning in the direction of. That's not insignificant in the world of the environment these days. And I know I want to see my Board of Selectmen step up a little stronger for the environment. It's the #1 issue in this town in particular, because we're a coastal town with coastal resources, sea level rise, and climate change. We need to recognize that, and it's probably one of the most important committees going into the future. We need to get it going, or we need an explanation. Maybe there's a legal reason none of us are aware of, but this is going on too far. And I'm hearing it from other towns that I work with. What's going on in Rockport? I have channels other places because of my other work. I don't get it. I've been involved with the commission for 30 years in some form or the other. I'm not understanding this, and people are asking me left and right, what is going on in Rockport, from people in town and out of town,
Thank you,
and
Eric.
professional people at
Thank
the
you.
state and
You can
federal
let them
level.
know. You can let them know the answer is personnel issues within the committee. Okay, we're working on those. We're also trying to get the agent, as I said before. We are working on it constantly. Okay, we haven't given up on it. We're working with the state DEP, and we're working with our council. There are multiple issues that unfortunately aren't public because they can't be public because they're personnel issues. Okay, so we're working on it. We'll get it done. Sorry it's taking so long. If there's anything else I can do, let me know. Reach out, so we're working on it. And unfortunately, Laura, we've gone too long. I'm not going to do a second round of public comments on the first section. We can do it during the second section at the end of the meeting. With that, we'll be moving on to the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes, if any, and seasonal position appointments. And I'll take a motion if we have one.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the consent agenda.
Before the vote, I would
Yes,
like
go
to
ahead.
make one quick comment.
Yep.
With regard to minutes for July 19th, in the very first line, when it says present, it says Chairman bracket, select persons Lilia, Wilkinson, Lilia. I'd like my name taken out once, please.
Alrighty. And do I have a second with that correction in place?
I'll second it.
Alrighty. Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
and Selectman Donnelly, or Selectwoman
Aye.
Donnelly.
Aye.
Thank you. And next on our agenda is an action list, which will be setting the open and closed dates for the fall town meeting. As Selectman Wilkinson said, it won't be opening closing tonight. So if Mitch wants to take it away.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, thank you. So we have entered the timeframe to move forward with preparations for fall town meeting. The recommendation to you is to open the warrant effective August 3rd and close it August 10th at noon. That gives about a week to get turnaround on that. We are working on preparing the documents that we've received from CPC, the articles from CPC, some materials, some draft materials from government and bylaw, and some other articles that will be moving forward. So this right out of the gate will be a full meeting. I anticipate that at a minimum, factoring in government bylaw, CPC, and a few others, that we'll see at least 20 items to act upon, 20 articles. So, that's certainly a significant list for a fall town meeting. So this is the recommendation for opening, and we're prepared to move and pick things up rapidly right after that. So once this does close, we've got a week and a half to get things turned around and get it back to you with the intention of having you sign the final warrant on August 16th.
No, thank you. Any questions? If not, I'll take a motion for those dates.
Sure, Mr. Chair, I move that the board open the September 12th, 2022 Fall Town Meeting warrant, August 3rd, 2022, and close it August 10th, 2022 at noon.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
and Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on our agenda is consider approval of an osprey nest on town property. If Sarah wants to do the honors of introducing them.
Sure. I believe I see Michael Kelly here, and I think I saw his son, Colin. Is
Yes,
here.
I saw
Yep, there he
Colin's on there.
Oh, there's Colin right center and middle. So Michael had reached out to us a few months ago. Honestly, I love these projects. They're always like so cool. It's kind of like CPC. It's things that like wouldn't get done, right? Because the town doesn't have the money or the resources. And it takes, you know, in this case, it takes a really bright high schooler to come up with something that would be really cool for the town. So Michael reached out. Obviously, obviously becoming an Eagle Scout is a huge endeavor that Colin has taken on. And I think that he's going to make just a brief presentation because his Eagle Scout project approval from the selectmen, and then we'll need approval, final approval on the location by the Conservation Commission. But I believe that we could do the first step tonight. And I will turn it over to Colin Kelly. Welcome, Colin.
Right. Hi there. My name is Colin Kelly, 18 Summer Street. I'm a lifelong resident of Rockport. We'll be high school seniors this fall, and as you've said, I'll be a candidate for the Eagle rank in the Rockport Troop 20 Scouts. My last visit to the Board of Selectmen was actually in 2017. As part of earning the Citizenship and the Community Merit Badge, I attended a meeting to learn how local government works. Tonight, I am coming before you to ask for your approval and acceptance of my completed Eagle project, an osprey nesting platform sponsored by the Essex Greenbelt. As you said, I have a very brief PowerPoint to explain the project, which I'll move through quickly. And thank you in advance for making time on tonight's agenda for me to present.
Your screen share capabilities?
Possibly, I
Monty?
believe. Yeah. I believe I was told town might have my PowerPoint already.
Oh,
but-
we have it. I'll see if Mitch, do you have it up for him?
I mean, I can certainly share it. The board does have it. Hold on one moment and I'll pull it up if you'd like.
Sure, thank you.
Any questions for Colin as we get started, before we get started?
So, Colin, when do you anticipate reaching the rank of Eagle Scout? How far away?
I'm fairly close actually, because the date for aging out is August 13th, or my birthday, which is August 13th, because I'll be turning 18. And I have to submit all my paperwork before then, but after that, it could maybe take only a couple months before I get a board of review, which is kind of our final test for them to determine whether you'll reach the rank.
Well,
So
congratulations, that's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. So I see we have the PowerPoint up here. Thank you. So yeah, I guess I can go to the first slide. So in ospreys in Essex County, ospreys were becoming an increasingly rare sight in Essex County until 2008, when the Greenbelt Essex County's Land Trust began a nesting habitat program. Ospreys are native birds who dine on fish and have made a comeback since the nesting program began. Marshland provides an ideal habitat for the nesting platform, providing ready access to their favorite meal and safety to raise their young. And I have chosen this as my Eagle Scout project because it complements the natural beauty of Rockport. So osprey nest design, it's already been developed by the Greenbelt, and they've installed a lot of these platforms through the North Shore. The closest platform is in Gloucester. It's behind Lobster Land, and it does include an osprey cam. However, my project will not include that camera because financial reasons and also electricity. It's a whole nother issue. So I have worked with Dave Remmer, Director of Stewardship Greenbelt, who has actually provided the materials free of charge. More than 50 platforms have been actually built by Greenbelt, and Troop 20 constructed this platform this past Saturday. So the location of the platform, the marsh behind Long Beach provides an optimal environment for the nest. There's no neighbors lookout on the nest. It's not going to disrupt anyone's view of, view Rockport, and motorists driving from Rockport to Gloucester will actually get a nice view of the nest residents without disturbing the birds. So on the next slide, I have an image of where we might place this platform. The three red stars there, those are the most optimal locations we have for the platform. The middle star is hopefully the one that would be the most optimal, but all three of them, any of them could work. And I am asking for this your approval tonight with the, I am asking for your approval tonight with the acknowledgement that the nest won't be installed until the Conservation Commission can actually approve the final site. And that's all I've got. So thank you so much for giving me your time.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's
Excellent.
impressive.
Quick question, does this mean that there are possibly
Sorry,
50
muted.
nesting pairs in Essex County? You mentioned 50 nests, that rather nesting areas that have been set up. Are they all filled?
I don't know that at the current moment, but the majority of them are, I would say. Essex Greenbelt does this program in order to monitor the osprey population. And there's been a lot of osprey population growth over the past 10, 20 years, especially since 2008 because of this program. So I imagine most of the platforms are filled with ospreys. Yeah.
Okay.
Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, thank you. I had a question as well. This is really inspiring, Colin. Thank you so much for taking this on. And also thank you to Troop 20. You guys do so much for this town that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. You're just great. We're lucky to have you. Do you know, so you kind of touched on this already. Are the ospreys that we're attracting, it's through growth of the population, or do you know if we're attracting them from elsewhere, like Maine or something? Do you know where they're coming from?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for the praise. But the way the osprey actually get attracted is they're usually around in the environment, but what the nest does essentially is it provides a safe place for osprey to nest that are in the area that might not have one otherwise. Especially it has a predator guard that will prevent predators from entering the nest and harming the ospreys that are ospreying. And it also it provides kind of a relief from any pollution or plastics, for example, that might otherwise impede the nest that they would have developed on their own.
Yeah. Who are the predators for ospreys?
That I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's mostly for safety of ospreys.
The offspring. Yeah.
Because if we have there's a metal sheet that we've installed underneath on the post, and it's designed to prevent like small land animals, for example, from
climbing up
the post and stealing things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.
Wilkinson?
This is so cool. My family and I are big fans of the Osprey cam behind, and in person, the one behind Lobsterland. And this proposal is like right down the street from my house, which is cool. It's also located right near like the Thatcher Road bus stop. And we've over the years watched a lot of hawks there. So it's like a really, really cool spot. So what a great idea and great plan, and so cool that your troop helped you build it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I really enjoyed the idea of these platforms because it's a central aspect, I think, a lot of Rockport is its natural beauty. So it's really, I'm really proud that I'm able to be a part of the town's kind of effort to keep the wildlife around. And
yeah. Nice job.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one last question from me. Colin, how did you, there was so many projects out there, so many opportunities to do different things. Just kind of curious, what made you choose this particular project? I think it's great, and I concur with my colleagues' comments as well.
Well, thank you. So one of the main reasons was I was aware that Essex Greenbelt had these platforms because they have some in Gloucester. But the big reason I actually picked this project was there's actually no osprey nesting platforms in Rockport, and that's one of the only towns in Essex County that doesn't have one, which I was surprised because it's, a really largely coastal town, so there's a fair amount of ospreys around. That was probably the main reason I picked it, because I wanted to aid in that effort, but also it was really shocking that they hadn't put one in yet.
Good. Well, thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Hopefully, some of the, Boy Scouts behind you will come up and make some of their own, so we can have a few more in town.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
So I think it's a great project that you guys are putting forward. Any other questions from the board? If not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. I move that the board approve the placement of an osprey nest in the marsh adjacent to Long Beach, subject to Conservation Commission approval.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Dunham,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, Colin.
Yeah.
I see your father there with a big smile on his face as well. I'm sure he's happy.
Who's his father?
Some guy named Michael.
Michael Kelly. I think I've seen a picture of him somewhere.
Can I just comment that we have had a handful of Eagle Scout projects, and all the projects have been excellent over the years, but this really was an excellent presentation, especially the PowerPoint.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is the popular proposal Headlands project and donation status and determination. And I will turn it over to Denise if she wants. I know she had some focus on the last DPW meeting. If you want to start us off.
Yeah, it was clear from the last DPW meeting that the DPW has quite a few complex and competing priorities right now, and many of them are approaching urgency. But I think, Sarah, I think what would be helpful for everyone is kind of to back up a little bit and share with everyone how this came about, because there have been some statements about how the Board of Selectmen approval was assumed, and I wasn't on the board at the time, so I think it would just be helpful to hear the context.
All right, you're talking about the original donation?
Yeah.
Selectwoman Wilkinson?
Yeah, so I think, to be totally honest, we had to go back and look at the notes because I couldn't even remember when it was. And I believe Mitch can correct me if I'm wrong, that it was in 2019.
It was December 2020.
2020. Okay. So, I know that the idea for that this donation was going to be made came to the selectmen as a, hey, there's this gentleman who wants to give this very generous donation, and has had talks, and one of the ideas thrown around is that the headlands could be improved, and all I remember is being like, oh, that sounds great. Obviously, the town is always up for a monetary donation to make improvements to something. And then I believe we told the individuals to go and talk to the DPW and kind of explore and come back. I don't remember. And frankly, I think I would have been alarmed. Now that I'm kind of seeing, we haven't been given the presentation, but I've seen it and I've read it, and we've all been inundated with dozens of letters. But I remember it being, $50,000 is, frankly, it's a very nice, generous donation, but it's not, it's not tons and tons of money. And it more of like just improve access to the headlands. That was the impression I was under, and that the DPW would work on it, and that it would be a DPW project. I see Ruth shaking her head. I think she was on the board at the time. That it was just kind of a simple, hey, improve access, improve the path to the headlands, maybe clean it up a little. I frankly didn't at all envision kind of what this has turned into. And then I started seeing the presentations and the landscape designer and how much money was spent on that. And so I know that, that a few of us have spoken to the chairman about our concerns. And frankly, for me, the Headlands is like one of the most beautiful spots in town. It doesn't need any changing. And I have been reached out to by dozens and dozens of residents. I kind of go back to Nathan Ives' letter from as chairman of the Rights of Way. That's just like, hey, improving the access is great, but we don't need any more than that. And no one has asked for it. And so I know several of us asked Ross to put it on the agenda tonight. And I think that's why I got here. So obviously not like, begrudging any or being negative about any donation. The donation is very generous. I think that Denise might have an idea about moving forward, but yeah. I do think, this reminds me, I'll say one more comment. Sorry, I'm talking so much. Several years ago, someone approached the Board of Selectmen with a beautiful but huge sculpture to put on the end of Bearskin Neck. And I remember we were like, oh my goodness, like this is a beautiful sculpture. But the beauty of Bearskin Neck is that it's totally natural and there isn't anything out there. And we kind of at the time were like, we just want it to be a natural area that people can enjoy for what it is. And that to me is what the Headlands is like as well. So is that helpful?
Yeah, it was. Selectman Murphy, you want to say something?
Sure. I recall that same scenario that Sarah just described. At no point did a situation come up with park benches and picnic tables and things of that nature, which obviously causes a great alarm. $50,000 for improvements is good, but the last thing I would want to or would support is any changing of the Headlands. The Headlands is arguably one of the most beautiful spots in Rockport, New England, the country. People come flock there to just sit there on the rocks and so forth. So I'm not interested in moving forward with anything other than some maybe brush to make it a little bit more easily accessible. But it is important that it remains the way it is today, because obviously from the countless letters and emails that the Board of Selectmen have been in receipt of, this is a very special place for so many people that reside here in Rockport and travel to Rockport.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have actually two motions that if you will allow me, I'd like to make.
Yep. And that's Selectman Lilly, did you want to say something?
Well, before the motion is made, I want to at least echo what others have said and go back to the minutes of the meeting, quite frankly, which I did ask to receive and Mitch provided them to me. And everyone's name, has sort of been mentioned who had anything to do with it back in December of 2020. And it really was an effort to accept funds to make some changes. And as was said at the time, it is a park on which nothing has been done for years, and a little bit of maintenance would be appreciated. So this was echoed by the different board members at that moment. And Chairman George, did echo that this is to clean it up, but to leave it as it has been. The alarm that has been expressed is probably should have been reserved until people went back and looked at the minutes of the meeting to see how it originated. It was not done in any sort of secret way by the Board of Selectmen, and it was done very openly and all for the best reasons. So I'm in complete agreement with my colleagues. So please go ahead, Denise.
Thank you, Herm. I want to make something clear. The donation was not made to the town. The donation was made to the Essex County Community Foundation, and it's being administered, I guess, at the donor's direction by Mr. Hess. So it is not a donation to the town. I think there's been some confusion about that. But the motion that I'd like to make is, it's quite clear, I think, to all of us at this point in time that this is not a direction the town should go in. And I'd like to move that we direct the DPW to cease all review of this project and assume that it is now not moving forward.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion?
Just to clear up, because a couple of the letters we got this week's batch of letters, were kind of saying like, how dare you spend money on plans? But just so people know, the town hasn't spent any money on this. The
Zero.
plans and anything that was done with private funds. And I actually had no idea until I saw the presentation by the
Yeah.
DPW.
And as I stated online through multiple comments, is that I was surprised to see it because I haven't seen, we selectmen still haven't seen it. We never saw the
Ever.
slideshow, but so I was surprised when they were saying, you know, how can selectmen let this happen? Again, it was going through the proper process. Unfortunately, the people that were pushing it through the process were pushing it too hard, and you know, it got out there in public like it was already approved by us. And again, we weren't doing anything secretive. It was going through DPW. It was eventually going to come to us. But
Yeah.
again, if you watch the DPW meeting, even they wanted heavy input from the public before they were going to do anything. So again,
Yeah.
Selectman Lilia?
Yeah, one other quick comment. And if I understand correctly, the DPW does oversee all the parks. So it was logical for them to be reviewing this.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. It'd go through them first, then it would come to us for
Right.
final approval. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
But that process was misunderstood by the vast majority of the people who were commenting.
Thank you.
I actually, my next motion will actually address that comment.
Awesome.
Oh, great.
Alrighty.
Good.
All right, so we had a second and we had our discussion. So Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. And you want to discuss your, or just want to go with your second motion?
My second motion is that I actually would like to point out to those who aren't aware that I don't know that I would consider the Headlands a park. It's been maintained by the Rights of Way Committee for many decades. And I think the real jurisdiction and authority for maintaining the Headlands should continue to rest with the Rights of Way Committee. You know, with support from the DPW as needed for emptying the trash cans and so forth. But this really is a property that the Rights of Way Committee has maintained for upwards of 40 years, as far as I understand it. And unfortunately, they weren't even pulled into this conversation. They found out about this kind of when the rest of us did during this presentation. So my second motion is that we formally delegate authority for maintaining the Headlands as they have done for quite a long time to the Rights of Way Committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And then discussion? Selectman Lilia?
Yes, I see a great disparity with regard to how our parks are maintained. This bothers me immensely. Millbrook Meadows is dealt with in a very fine fashion. The greatest of attention is given to Millbrook Meadow. We have Davis Park, which has been enhanced, perhaps to the detriment of Davis Park, but it's been enhanced. We have this natural prospect at the Headlands, which by and large does its own thing. The only thing that really needs to be done occasionally is to make sure that the branches aren't poking you in the eye each spring as the shoots come out, and there is a need to sort of cut things back in a certain way. And then there is the park down at the end of South Street, which everyone ignores. We spent money on it. It was given to the town. To me, it's desperate. So it is the farthest removed, so to speak, from the center of town, therefore gets the least attention, the least notice. That still bothers me. I think it ought to be handled then by the Rights of Way Committee as well as the Headlands. It's the same kind of prospect or prominence. I don't think that one should be left to the weather and the other should be viewed only for its charm and enhanced as much as it can be within the limits of what will be acceptable to the town folks. So if the Rights of Way Committee wants to take responsibility for the headlands, they take responsibility in my mind for at least the park at the end of South Street, overlooking the Atlantic at that point. I don't want to see that park just sit there with no one particularly caring about it. My comments.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Denise.
I was just going to say, actually, there was an effort made to improve that park maybe 2 years ago. And unfortunately, the effort that was made was wiped out by a major storm. So it has gotten some attention in the past. It's not been ignored. I just want to make that point.
Yeah, that's true. I fully understand that, but that does not mean that you don't go back and rectify whatever needs to be rectified.
No, sure.
So therefore, I'm saying again, they want to take over the headlands. They take over, in my mind, they take over the park associated with Cape Edge.
So I would suggest that this is for a broader discussion for the board, because the headlands are public property. I agree, and I totally appreciate what the Rights of Way does, and I want them to continue to maintain it. I mean, frankly, we have a similar situation. At Evans Field, where we have a volunteer who takes care of it, and I found out yesterday that he's paying out of his pocket to replace sprinkler heads. So, you know, it's I think we have several issues going on, which it's almost like an embarrassment of riches, where we have volunteers who have been kind enough to care for property that somehow is, not been totally taken care of by the DPW, but in some cases it's just because volunteers have started to take care of it. So I think that's a bigger discussion that I think deserves its own agenda item, frankly, for who should. But I would love for Rights of Way to continue to take care of this. And then if there's a way to, if they still want to consider the donation to donate the money, that that Rights of Way could continue their efforts at the headlands, and then have a separate discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If I could amend my motion, I meant to say that as well, is that if the individual who was kind enough to make that generous donation could then donate that money to a gift fund at the town and have it allocated to the Rights of Way Committee, which actually doesn't just trim things back once a year at the headlands. From my understanding, Nathan Ives is there every day. And so there's plenty of work that goes on at the headlands all the time, and I'm sure that they would welcome the support. So I'd like to amend my motion to include that as well.
Yeah,
So
because
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I would support that, but I don't think I'm at the point yet of delegating official custody just to rights. I think that's a broader discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's already happened. It's the way we've been operating for 40 plus years. It's not something new. It's what's been happening. And the DPW becoming involved when they have their hands full already with more projects than they can handle just makes it, I think, clear that this is the direction we should go.
We have Nathan Ives there. If he wants to speak on this, if he's okay with. I mean, I know he's been taking care of it. If he wants to let us know how he feels about this.
Thank you, Ross. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So it's a joy for the committee, for the Rights of Way Committee, if I could speak on their behalf, to have such a treasure as the headlands to take care of. And it does require quite a bit of effort on behalf of the committee and attention ongoing. And we were very appreciative this year of the increased budget from the town at the town meeting to help us do more. So we've just recently acquired electric charged equipment that is easier to use and to get out there and do it. So it makes our job a little easier and we're not polluting while we do it. So I know we'll have a meeting again later this month and we would welcome the opportunity to continue as we have As I say, it's a deep commitment on behalf of the committee. And taking it on to the South Street, the Sandpiper Inn spot, I don't think would be a problem.
It
So just
appears
one
that you're
note-
at the Headlands right now, Nathan.
Just
Don't
one-
tell my family.
Just one note on the end of South Street, the Sandpiper property. I'm looking through my notes here, and I believe that one may be under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah,
And
they're
just
the ones who make
collaboratively
the
with them.
decisions.
Like the Care and Preserve is Conservation Commission. We work collaboratively with them.
Yep.
No, and always, so. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Selectman Lilja.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So then should we not have some sort of a system with regard to how these different parks or prominences are managed? And the mere fact that they fall under the jurisdiction of different committees comes as a surprise to me, I guess. And one would think that there ought to be sort of some unanimity with regard to that, even if it's just the practices that they practice when in fact they are maintaining these. Should they not all be up to a particular standard or done by the same group? I think there is a larger discussion to have here. I'm in complete agreement with Selectman Wilkinson.
So
And-
I will say that, Mitch can correct me if I'm wrong. In hindsight, the DPW controls all parks. Well, controls what happens at the park, so to speak. They have the full jurisdiction. It's just how we've delegated in the past, I would say. So I'm sure that could be up for review too, if you'd like, Selectman Lilja.
It would be nice to see a uniform practice.
Mitch?
I was just gonna say, Mr. Chair, we can come up if it's helpful with a full list of all the properties, because I think just some of the discussion tonight is covering more than just parks. There's parks, there's conservation property, there's just general municipal property, and come up with, who has been point on it, if that's helpful.
Yep. I'm not going to take any public comment. I'm sorry, guys. When we do a further discussion, if we put it on for agenda item, I'll take it then. So right now we have amendment on the floor, which I think we need a second for.
I'll second it.
All right, and now we have to vote on that amendment. And Denise, if you just want to, or Selectwoman Donnelly, if you just want to repeat the amendment.
The amendment is that the generous donor consider donating that money to a gift fund at the town to be allocated to the Rights of Way Committee to continue their work of maintaining the headlands.
Thank you. And just so we're going to do a roll call vote. This is just for the amendment to the original motion that Selectwoman Donnelly made.
May I ask a question?
Yep.
With regard to any other funds that support any other committees for any other landscape projects or parks, does that committee have the right to use those funds as they see fit? Or are those funds, or the allocation of those funds for a particular effort to be approved of by the Board of Selectmen? How does all that work?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, it depends on the donor's wishes and any parameters that the selectmen choose to set. So a donor may say, we'll donate X amount of money for this particular purpose. The selectmen have the choice on whether you accept it or not based on those parameters. But you certainly, if they say they want it for X to happen, the selectmen believe it's okay for that to happen, it has to stay with that. Gifts can come in, and they do come in for more broad purposes. For example, the ambulance department and Council on Aging were recipients of 2 large gifts from the Sears estate earlier in the year, and it was for their general purposes. So they had the ability to make that determination. We've had other gifts come in for very, very specific finite purposes for, supporting a particular room at the library or a particular type of book to purchase. So it really does depend in large part, number one, on the donor's wishes when they provide us the gift and the parameters that selectmen are willing to accept for that.
May I, one final comment, and then I'll cease and desist. I was just thinking in terms of the parks and whether or not there would in fact be some equivalency with regard to the funds available to in fact attack the needs of any park. So therefore, if the residual of the $50,000 is then to be left to the use of the Rights of Way Committee. That certainly does enhance the features of the headlands, but as Nathan has already said, he might be willing to take over the park at the end of South Street, and maybe those funds could be used for that purpose too, because it's desperately in need of help. Anyway, that was the basis for my commentary.
So no matter what Denise's motion, no matter what the motion is tonight, we would, if the donor decides to donate the money to the town, we would then have to accept the gift.
Yep.
So this is, I mean, honestly, we don't even need to vote. Do you know what I mean? This is more of a simple phone call, but I think, a vote just to imply, that we would recommend that they, that they donate the money to a gift fund for the town. And then the actual taking of the donation would be a separate thing, like we took town art, right, Mitch?
Correct. So just to be clear, the motion that's before you is an amendment to the original motion, which adds on that language to the motion.
I'm going to have her repeat it after you go
Sure.
through this
Oh,
roll call
right.
vote, so.
Yeah,
Right,
it
I forgot
adds
about
on to
the
the rights of
original.
way portion.
So I'll do
Yeah.
the roll call vote now. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
So this is for the whole thing?
this is just for the amendment to go on. We have to approve the amendment, and then we have to go on to
Oh,
the.
got it.
new
Okay,
motion.
so I guess aye.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. So if you want to repeat the original motion now, Selectwoman Donnelly.
Jeez, okay. If I can remember it. That clearly the DPW has many urgent priorities that they're trying to contend with, and doesn't have the bandwidth to take this on at this point in time. Given that the Rights of Way Committee has maintained the headlands for more than 40 years and has done a great job at that. I'd like to recommend that we formally delegate the Rights of Way Committee as being responsible for continuing to maintain the headlands.
And the amendment part,
And I thought we just voted on that.
we voted to put the amendment onto the motion. So when you make an amendment to a motion, you have to approve the amendment to go on the original motion.
Okay, and that we encourage and recommend that the donor donate the money to a gift fund to be allocated to the Rights of Way Committee to maintain the headlands.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
And any further discussion?
Yeah, so back just, and it's honestly just like a logistical thing. I'm concerned if we do this, that what is the Rights of Way budget?
$5,000.
Okay, so I'm concerned that if something needs to be done at the headlands, that it's no longer, the DPW budget covers a lot, so my concerns are just about the original section. I know that they're going to continue to care for it. I just worry about taking things away from the DPW, like budget wise and
Does this strip the DPW, would this strip the DPW from
No,
providing funding if needed? I don't.
no, we would just formally designate the Rights of Way Committee as being responsible. The DPW is still the DPW and is responsible for what they've always done. They don't do anything at the headlands now, except empty the trash can.
Well, don't.
Selectman Lilia?
I wouldn't in any way deny what I don't know that the DPW does with regard to the headlands, and it's probably more than trash. But the fact remains is that yes, that which is allocated currently for the maintenance of the headlands should continue to be allocated or designated by town meeting. And this happens to be an extra collection of funds, much as other groups in town have funds at their disposal that in fact sit in separate accounts. So only see it, as I said before, that it's making one particular park better than another park by virtue of the financial support that that park has, and that applies to others. I don't like that. I think that there ought to be some, what can I say, equivalency here. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
If I may, Mr. Chair, we didn't choose the headlands, the donor chose the headlands. So all I'm doing is trying to follow the lead of the donor in the way that they decided to allocate their money. That's all.
All right, so this motion will, I mean, the headlands is already being maintained by the Rights of Way Committee. I mean, I'm pretty sure at the DPW meeting, they even said that they don't do much at the
Right.
head. They
That's
said
what
it
they
themselves, so
said.
I know Selectwoman Donnelly is not assuming that. I heard them say it as well. So
Me too.
with that, I'll go with a roll call. I'll just take a roll call vote if there's no more discussion.
Well, so can I just ask Mitch a question? Mitch, do
Mhm.
you think that this just kind of confirms what we've been doing, or do you think it takes away, like, you know, if the DPW were to have a list of properties, right? Do you think this takes away the headlands, or do you think that this just kind of, you know, gives the rights of way, like the deference when issues like this come up?
So from what I'm discerning from it, it would make them primary on it. I think some of the question would come down to, is it a park or not? As to, you know, what authority level, if the intention is just to say rights of way, hey, your front line on keeping the place in shape, that's fine. If it's something more, then we
Yeah,
need to
I
look
mean,
at it more. But if it's
and
just,
not to
hey,
say, like,
you're the primaries to keep those paths open in
That's,
the area,
yeah.
that's
yeah,
fine.
if the Rights of Way came to us and said they need some help, I mean, we can just say, hey, DPW, they need some help, you know, in the
Right.
end.
Right.
You know, it's not restricted them from going there and not doing anything. So
Yeah, I think if the intention, and I'm not saying it is, just if the intention is bigger than that, to say, okay, DPW, you're out of the picture,
Okay,
that's a
great.
different discussion.
yeah,
And is I just want to make sure Nathan's on the same page, because, you know,
yeah,
okay.
he is.
Okay, cool. Then I'm fine with it. I just don't want to like go officially taking, you know, go changing department responsibilities around.
Selectman Maria?
Yeah.
As Selectman Wilkinson did make reference to what might be said in a telephone call to the benefactor, that is, you know, could those funds be used for more than the headlands? I would hope that when that telephone conversation takes place, that possibility is raised.
All right. So roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson,
Hi.
Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. So with that out of the way, we have headlands is done for the DPW. They're not going to be looking at the project anymore. The headlands project, I should say, is done. It's not going to be moving forward anymore with the DPW or us or anyone. So just so the public knows that. And we're on to Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator updates. Open up with Mitch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So two items for the board to be aware of. Of course, as everybody is aware now, the water restrictions are in place. Those continue to be important. The DPW and Police Department are monitoring compliance with those. A reminder to everyone who may utilize a private well for watering, that you do need to post a sign on your property. We are working on getting those signs in place for some of the public properties that utilize wells. You know, we certainly have a lot of areas that utilize wells, so we want to make sure folks have a sign out stating well water in use that's visible from the street. That will help cut down on calls and issues that are already coming in. And certainly, again, we are at the point where the drought is at, according to the state drought monitor, critical. So any level of conservation is really important at this point for that, especially, you know, when we look at not just regular usage demands on the water supply, but things like having, you know, fires go on, or this forest fire that's going. You know, I think a very good example, unfortunate one, but good example of the need to conserve came through from Gloucester today. So, you know, they were in the same boat as us, generally speaking, and then they had a significant water break on Friday, and they had a very significant forest fire yesterday and continuing through to today. That's extremely taxing on the system. So conservation in general is really critical at this point. So we'd encourage that, in addition, really above and beyond what the restrictions are now from the commissioners. And then second to that, tomorrow evening at 5:30 via Zoom, we will be hosting a community information session regarding the Woodland Acres forest fire. The forest fire warden and the statewide forest fire chief and the District 5 warden will be giving a little bit of a discussion and presentation on what's happened so far in that location and what they're doing moving forward. And then they will be there to answer any general questions that come out of it. So, we're certainly at the point where it's been a few weeks, I think, that this has been going now. So the Forest Fire Department, under the guidance and direction of the state, has been utilizing various techniques, including some controlled burns and particularly burnouts in areas to draw the fire in a particular direction. They've done a very good job of, the state came in and widened all the paths around the particular area, which has helped to function as a fire break. Unfortunately, forest fire is there as we speak now in the woods for another flare up. So they're going to be sharing some hopefully helpful information tomorrow to give some better context. And the state forest fire chief will also be able to give kind of some bigger picture context to forest fires and what they're dealing with around the state and the different methods that they deploy. We're very fortunate to have a very seasoned and experienced forest fire department. The warden has been in that department for nearly 40 years. And he is working very, very closely with the DCR forestry staff, who are truly the experts on this. They do this full time, and they have been closely involved and continue to be closely involved throughout this process. So that is coming up tomorrow evening, Wednesday, August 3rd at 5:30 via Zoom. The information was posted on all of the town's social media accounts. It was sent out via an email and text, code red, and the link is also on the homepage of the town website under the news section in the center of the web page. So for folks who have questions, this is the time. Been a lot of chatter on social media about some different things. This is the chance to come in here directly from the experts who are managing the process.
Mitch, has the Commonwealth, have they offered to send a helicopter to douse? I've seen them, they've done that in years past. Have we had any conversation about using a helicopter?
I'm not sure specifically to that point. I do know there's been some significant discussion about, with how dry everything is, the average amount of water isn't going to necessarily be helpful here. The warden shared with me this afternoon that early on, they had saturated a particular area, and within 30 minutes, it was just complete dust again, like nothing had been applied.
That's
so,
amazing.
More than I would say the average water usage would be able to address right now.
Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, I just had a question for the town administrator, Mitch. Is it possible to also have the DPW and police kind of visit homes of people who have in-ground pools? I know there are quite a few around town, and I think that's another area where we just have to make sure they understand that this is just a really dire situation. And unfortunately, they probably shouldn't be filling their pools, but we do have the beautiful ocean to swim in. So
And the quarries.
And the quarries. Yep, just at Little Parker earlier today. So if is that something you think we could have them do?
I can certainly have a conversation with them on what outreach methods might be helpful for something like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
The other concern in terms of water conservative is hotels and inns and things of that nature. if we can do a reach out to them to instruct people or plead with people that most people recognize that we're in a drought. So if whatever they can do to comply, I think would be helpful.
Yep, we
Yeah.
did send it to our list of businesses last
Good.
week as well, the restrictions. So I think generally speaking, folks are aware, and DPW and the police are keeping a really close eye on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I'll just add, to get our firefighters water themselves, we do have to go to the next town over just to get them bottled water, so, because we did ban them in this town. So I just had to say that. Selectman Lilia?
A very interesting comment. I was just thinking that I doubt there's anyone who's trying to fill their swimming pool at this particular point in time. And on the other hand, there certainly are trucks that were organizations, businesses that would in fact supply water to a swimming pool and a tank truck. So I think the people will in fact be respectful, and I have a high regard for them, and there's always the tendency on the part of every one of us perhaps to do something that's not entirely up to the line, but I don't think that people in general are interested in violating what has become the code or the law at the present time.
I didn't mean to suggest that people would intentionally violate it. I walked by a house with an in-ground pool that was full till overflowing today, which is what made me think to suggest it.
And sometimes they think, I just got to fill up an inch. Unfortunately, in an in-ground pool, an inch is a lot of water, and I've heard people say that before and ask those type of questions if they can use it to fill up their pools. So it's not a bad suggestion to make. Any other updates, Mitch?
That's it for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any from the board?
I just want a quick one, and it's a very positive one. A heads up, or not heads up, a shout out to folks that put on the concert. They did a terrific job last night. There's tons of people there, and they continue to attract crowds. So it's kind of sitting there at Back Beach and with that ocean in the background on a hot summer night is you feel pretty lucky.
I like to tune into the live shows on Facebook.
Yeah, I did those, and I was like, I was wondering if people would watch, but I think a lot of people really liked it, which was cool. Last night was, I think, the biggest crowd we've had yet.
Yeah.
There were definitely a good couple hundred people there. And it was the first time we had a Grateful Dead cover band, and they were amazing. And we will definitely have them back next year. Tonight, as we speak, is Northwest Fox, which is a local group. Tonight's a rain out. And then I forget who's next week, but honestly, like, Bruce does the heavy lifting on this, but huge crowds this year, and it's been awesome. And shout out to the Legion, who are killing it selling hot dogs and popcorn. And they get like a whole group of guys still begging me to sell beer, and I'm like, nope. But it's all good. It's great. It's like people of all ages. Last night there were like toddlers running around and people in their late 80s. It was so cool. So
Selectwoman Dolly, you had your hand
Yeah,
up?
Ross, I know we've talked about this. I just wanted to remind you that you can buy water in boxes.
I know. We have Cam just saying they did have to go to get bottled water. I changed all my sodas and waters to cans, just so you know.
Thank you.
All right. Any other updates from no updates from the board? Alrighty. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Second round. And we'll
Round
go with
two.
Ruth.
Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay, hi, thank you. First of all, I just want to remind people we have a COVID vaccine clinic this coming Saturday at the community house. This will be our first clinic that we're opening it up to 6 months and over. So parents can sign up their children. We have a low rate in Rockport of youngsters that little getting theirs. So we saw a need, so that will be available. Plus we'll have the over 50. We have Moderna, Pfizer, and some J&J, so that continues. And also I want to give a big thank you to the steps you took with the regarding the headlands. I grew up in that area. That was my playground for all of my life, all of my growing up years. It is a wild bluff area. It's not a park. It's got a tiny little wetland in it that fills up with water that has wild irises, blueberries, bayberries up there. It is a wild area. It's not a park. And thank you for not making it any more than it is. The back way by the Spiegel property is just some makeshift stairs. It was never made to be a major walkway there, and it just needs to stay the way it is. Thank you very much for your decision tonight.
Thank you, Ruth. Amy?
Waiting, am I unmuted? There.
Yep.
I had a question of Amy Huber, 1 Gaphead Road and 29 Atlantic Avenue in the summer. The new EV charging stations that are at the top of by the headlands. A lot of people have been parking there who are not actually charging their cars. And I was just wondering, what is the rule? Are you allowed to park there even if you aren't going to charge your car?
Yes, you are. Those have no restrictions on them. Only the ones at Town Hall have restriction. Town parking lot have residence lot have restrictions currently.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah, Tom?
Yeah, if you'd allow me to correct a misunderstanding about the new Green Community Grant.
Yep.
Respectfully, the statement that the town can't do anything because the town hasn't received the money is not correct.
Okay.
I'm looking at a copy of the letter. The letter states that the amount is awarded, and it indicates that we can begin contract negotiations. And so there is a premium on starting early because there's a real rush to get these contractors engaged. It's first come, first serve. The sooner we move, the sooner we can get our projects accomplished. And the way the money works is there's not money transferred until the projects are complete. So just wanted to correct that.
Thank you. Mary?
Mary Devaney, 1 Holbrook Court. I'd like to echo what Ruth George says. I thank you as well. I feel a great sense of relief, and I feel that the Rights of Way, which is a group I was served on for 10 years, has been really respected and acknowledged for all the work that they do. We have wonderful leadership, and I want to probably defer to Monica because I would like Herb to know that there has been a great deal of work done on a coordination of the various, like Ruth says, many of these areas are not parks. They are natural landscapes where people have trails that they can go through, and that's what they like. They go there for that purpose. But, and before COVID started, Monica set up a meeting, and we had everyone, every committee, there's South End, the Old Garden Beach, we had anyway, all of them, anybody who does any work on these sites all met together at the library, and we really had a wonderful time. Each person got up and said what they did and gave a little background. And so that was an attempt to do what Herb is concerned about. And I'm sure Monica, knowing Monica, I think she made a list and she has everybody down for what they're supposed to do. And if we hadn't had COVID, she probably would have had them on a schedule. So I think that he can be very confident that if now that the Rights of Way has a little more money, that this will be going forward, because it is a massive job to get all of these properties taken care of. But I know people really, really appreciate it. People always thank us and say how much they enjoy it. So, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Beth?
This is actually Terry Rizzolo. I'm on Beth's computer, so I got on her Zoom link. I'm on the Rights of Way Committee, and I wanted to support a couple of things that people have mentioned, some of the selectmen, one of which is the idea that as we take care of all these beautiful spaces, it's with the intent, obviously, of providing a resource to the community and to people outside of our immediate community. I think what Herm said before in looking at and thinking about all the different spaces we have and how to maintain them, it brings up what I'm going to call a policy issue, and it's how we fund things in general in town. And I think we have to be cautious, not, what would be the word, not denying anybody the right to give us a donation or a gift, but also that she who controls the purse strings sometimes controls the agenda. And that's a caution across the board, I think. Sometimes in a town like ours, we can abrogate the responsibility to the whole community by accepting donations. So for example, the Old Garden Beach group put in a ramp at OGB, and that was quite lovely and terrific. But if we needed a ramp at a different area, let's say at Cape Hedge Beach, there aren't funds for that. So I think as a policy, I would like to suggest to the Board of Selectmen that the maintenance and the prioritization of projects needs to be thought about in a broader way. And again, I reiterate what my other colleagues have said in terms of protecting the headlands and keeping it as it is currently. Thank you.
Monica?
There we go.
Okay, you've been unmuted.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Yes, I agree. Some good decisions tonight made with respect to the headlands. And just picking up a little bit on what Mary Devaney mentioned, we in the Rights of Way Committee had noticed a real disparities between and confusion and uncertainty as to who takes care of what. The Open Space and Recreation Committee's master report or plan for the town lists in a very comprehensive way all of the town-owned parcels, open space parcels, whether they be formal parks or whether they be town properties with which happen to have paths across them. And we did hold a meeting bringing everyone together, including Concom and the DPW, so that we could all have a better understanding of whose jurisdiction these parcels fall under and agree on a plan for cooperation in maintaining them. So the Headlands has always been under the jurisdiction of the DPW, and Delamata and Woodland Acres and Pine Pit always under the jurisdiction of Concom. So I do think it would be helpful for the selectmen to have a better understanding or an overview of the whole situation. And it would be as helpful as well, I think, to call a meeting of all of the respective open space groups again, to remind all of us of the need to collaborate in taking care of things. The Rights of Way Committee happens to be the group that is on the ground, so to speak, more so than the others and more frequently than the others. And we're happy to do it to the extent our resources permit, even on parcels that do not fall under our jurisdiction or have not officially, like the Headlands or the South Street. We're happy to do whatever we can. On a separate issue entirely, I did just want to give you a very brief update on the old firehouse project to kind of close things out. And I will send in a written report as well, because as you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I reported to you that we had to withdraw our project from CPC consideration because we had not received a letter from Mass Historical Commission confirming the historic status of the structure, and therefore we did not think we would be eligible for exemption, historic exemption from FEMA requirements to elevate the building, et cetera. Well, in the 2 weeks since that meeting, the situation changed considerably. I think I mentioned at that meeting that we wrote to the Mass Historic Commission to question their reasoning, which we felt was not correct. And within 2 days of receiving a superb letter from Kate Johns, the Mass Historical Commission reversed themselves and gave us the letter that we had expected all along, confirming that the building is a historic structure on a state inventory of historic assets of the Commonwealth, on the state register of historic places, and thereby would conform to FEMA requirements. We hustled to revive the project, but we had to go through the building inspector, who wanted to check with his colleagues in the state conservation and recreation department. And we did not hear back from them until it was too late, yesterday, in fact. We had to have known this by last Wednesday. Boy, I have a hummingbird pecking at my window. Excuse me. But in any event, we needed to know this information by last Wednesday, but the State Department of Conservation and Recreation confirmed what we had heard from Mass Historical, that the building is indeed, does qualify for historic status by FEMA standards. And it is too late for us this year to proceed with any kind of CPC application. But I just wanted to alert you that the door is open for repairs and improvements to the building in the future if there is an appetite to do so. And it will, the rulings that we got now from 2 state agencies will be helpful in connection with any other projects, private projects perhaps, but other buildings in the historic district that may face similar circumstances. So we cleared up, it was a good exercise in clearing up a lot of confusion. And the building is historic, but it cannot move forward. And I personally will not be involved with it from this point forward, but I wanted you to let you be aware of the official status and conclusion to the project for this year. And I will send in a written report as well.
Thank you, Monica. Z.
Z.
Yes,
Yep.
I got a message that the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves, so I had to wait. Yeah, earlier tonight at the first public comment session, I brought up the fact of the selectmen's policy that I wondered whether it was still in effect or whether or not another one had replaced it. And I wonder if anybody was able to look at those during the course of the meeting and inform me to what the status is. If not, I'll come in tomorrow and ask to see the new ones.
As I recall, I don't recall going over that policy when we were doing policy reviews. We only got to maybe 5 or 10 policies at most. So I don't think that was in that batch. So I think the one, as you see, is in effect. Whether we follow it to a T, I can't promise you anything, so.
Well, I think if it is still in effect, there's a clear answer that isn't followed at all. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else? No. All right, Toby.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I join Ruth George in thanking you for your decision on the Headlands project. Certainly the right one. Best to leave things alone. Fine as is. Then you're busy disposing of the money. But as you had said earlier in the discussion, you don't possess the money. It's been given or tentatively given to the Essex County Foundation, subject to the donor's whims, and the donor may or may not agree to what you wish to do with the money. So it seems to me previous to be talking about allocating it to the Rights of Way Committee for whatever purposes. And I would like to suggest to you that you make a counter proposal to Wally Hess and the nameless fat cat donor, and that would be with the $50,000, we could have 50 trees. Maybe You could have 100 trees for $50,000 and the town would be a greener and pleasanter place. And we would continue with the parks as they are, the various town committees struggling to maintain them. And on the trees, we could put little plaques, 2 inches by 4, no bigger than that, at ground level, so the dogs could pee on them. And on the plaques, we could put the name of the tree, Common English, and the Latin name, and the name of the fat cat donor, and the date it was planted. And we would all live happily ever after.
Okay, thank you, Toby. I will let you know that the donor's name is public if you look at the PowerPoint. And the reason why we're not directing the funds in any way. We're simply asking him to gift the town, to allocate them for what he had original purpose, not his project, but for the maintain and the headlands. So, which I think Rights Away would greatly appreciate. John's iPhone.
Hi, John Lilick from 7 Mount Locust Ave. Questions just that I wanted to kind of get some updates on the charging stations and then get some information on what you mentioned earlier about the Headlands stations on Atlantic Ave. To date, the charging stations continue to be free, and they're not charging for electric vehicle charging, which I think is going on a year now that was proposed to start charging. Depending on which side you're on in that conversation, one of the other issues that poses is if we're looking at bringing people in for the charging stations with electric vehicles, making it more user-friendly to them to come to visit Rockport, by not charging or not at the end of their charge time, implementing some sort of parking fee, electric vehicle users are able to basically park in the lot at the charging station, plug in, and stay there for an unlimited amount of time, even overnight if they're staying in town, preventing other electric vehicle users from accessing those. So, again, we're not charging yet like we should be, but 2, even if we are charging or not charging, at some point when their vehicle's charged, maybe an hour after, they should be prompted to move or pay normal parking fees for the town. And the second part of that, or that I have a question about, is so the downtown lots are only for electric vehicles and they're restricted, from ICE or internal combustion engines. Why is that not going to be the case for the Headlands? Again, electric vehicle owners coming into Rockport, they expect a charging station to be available. And if it's what they refer to as iced or taken up by an internal combustion engine, it does set a bad precedent. It does get poor comments on charge points, reviews for Rockport's, system. So
Thank you, John.
again, just look for a couple updates there.
Yep. So for the reason why is that there were 2 different grants. The ones at the resident lot required them to be enforced. But originally together, the whole project when brought to the selectmen was under the perception that we weren't going to be restricting any cars from parking in them. Unfortunately, the ones at the lot did have some fine print that required them to be restricted. And as for the charging, we're working on some banking issues in the back end. So that's why we haven't been charging for them yet. So I understand that it would be reasonable to restrict all of them, but we're just not at that stage yet. Selectwoman Wilkinson, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and that does I agree. I think that maybe they're making some headway on the banking issue. I know other people have reached out to me as well about it, and I agree about figuring out a way to also limit the time you park there, because it shouldn't be just unlimited forever parking after you charge your car. So we should definitely look at that.
Alrighty. I'm not going to take any second rounds on the second round. So if there's no more public comment, that should do it.
Right.
Alrighty. I'll entertain a motion. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion before we end it? Roll call vote. Selectwoman Wilkinson.
Aye.
Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Loya.
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you all. Good night.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Right.
thank you.